Breaking news. And this one is serious. Overnight, while most of the world was sleeping, Iran launched what the IRGC described as its revenge attack. Not a routine barrage, not drones. Iran fired the Khorramshahr-4 and Qadr missiles, multiple warhead weapons, specifically designed to split apart in the sky and release smaller bombs in different directions, making them much harder to intercept than a single missile. These are cluster munitions, weapons that release dozens of smaller explosions across a wide area. Weapons that the United States itself has condemned other countries for using against civilians. Iran used them on Tel Aviv. In the Ramat Gan suburb of Tel Aviv, just a few kilometers from the city center, a couple in their 70s were in their apartment when the missile hit. Their building had a protected shelter room. They did not make it there in time. The cluster munition penetrated the roof and exploded inside their living room. A man and a woman, in their 70s, killed. A neighbor named Lior told Haaretz, "I was on the stairwell and I heard an explosion. I saw everything collapsing around me. I was sure it was my house. I saw smoke. I ran home quickly and did not know what to do. It was the scariest thing in my life." Another neighbor, Zaki, told reporters the windows of his house were smashed by rocket fragments. He had gone to the local shelter. "There is a feeling," he said, "that people go out to the shelter less now. People are going to the shelter less, after 19 days of this war, because the exhaustion has set in. The alarms come so often that people are starting to ignore them, and sometimes, as happened last night, that costs them their lives." Iran called this attack revenge for Larijani. The war just escalated again. Let us be clear about what Iran used last night, because it matters enormously. The IRGC confirmed it fired the Khorramshahr-4 and Qadr missiles in the overnight attack. These are not basic ballistic missiles. They are multiple warhead systems, weapons that travel as a single missile and then separate in flight, releasing several smaller warheads that land across a wider area. Euronews confirmed this. Associated Press footage showed the release of the cluster munition from at least one missile as it moved over Israel. The split was captured on camera. Multiple warheads, coming apart in the sky over Tel Aviv. Here is why this specific weapons choice matters. Standard air defense systems like Iron Dome and Arrow are designed to intercept a single incoming projectile. When that projectile splits into multiple smaller warheads mid-flight, the defending system faces a much harder problem. It must track multiple targets simultaneously in the final seconds before impact. It must fire multiple interceptors, and some warheads will always get through. Iran's choice of cluster munitions was not random. It was a deliberate decision to use weapons that are harder to stop and that disperse explosive fragments across wider areas. This is what killed the couple in Ramat Gan. Not a direct hit by a full missile. Fragments from a cluster warhead that penetrated their roof. The IRGC statement confirming the attack said it was revenge for the killing of Ali Larijani, described as Martyr Dr. Larijani. Iran's military said it had hit more than 100 military and security targets across Israel. Israel disputed the scale of that claim but confirmed significant strikes on central Israel. Iran also fired simultaneously at Gulf states. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and other Gulf Arab nations all reported intercepting incoming missiles and drones in the early hours of Wednesday. The overnight campaign was not targeted at Israel alone. It was regional. Let us go through exactly what was damaged in Israel overnight, because the picture is more significant than most morning headlines captured. In Ramat Gan, the Tel Aviv suburb, 2 people were killed, an elderly couple in their 70s. The cluster warhead hit their apartment building. Police confirmed they died because they could not reach the building's protected room in time. 5 other people were lightly injured at the same impact site. At a Tel Aviv train station, damage was reported. The station is in the heart of the city, a major public transport hub. The fact that missile fragments hit it is significant. This is not an industrial or military target. It is a place where commuters travel every day. Rocket trails were captured on camera over Netanya, the Israeli coastal city north of Tel Aviv. More strikes across central Israel throughout the night. Israeli emergency responders confirmed multiple impact sites. In Carmiel, a city in northern Israel, the mayor confirmed that 3 residents were saved by being in their safe rooms when a strike hit near their area. Safe rooms work when people use them. The problem, as Zaki told Haaretz, is that after 19 days, people are using them less. The Times of Israel Live blog also reported that fragments landed near the Knesset, Israel's Parliament building, and near the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. These are among the most symbolically significant locations in the entire country. Missiles have now come close to both Israel's legislative center and one of the most sacred Christian sites on earth. Israel's death toll from Iranian attacks across the entire war now stands at 16 confirmed killed. The U.S. has suffered 13 service member deaths. Lebanon's health ministry reports more than 900 civilians killed in Israeli strikes on Lebanon. The numbers keep rising, on every side. Iran's IRGC was completely explicit about why it launched this specific barrage at this specific time. The statement said directly, "This attack was revenge for the killing of Ali Larijani." But here is what makes the timing even more significant. Iran launched these cluster missiles within hours of Israel confirming Larijani's death. The response was immediate, deliberate, and the choice of cluster munitions, weapons Iran had not previously used against Israeli civilian areas at this scale, suggests a deliberate escalation in severity. Iran is sending a message. Every time Israel kills a senior Iranian leader, Iran will respond, and the response will be measured against the importance of the person killed. Khamenei was killed on February 28th, day 1. Iran's initial response was a massive barrage of missiles across the Gulf. Larijani was killed on March 17th, day 18. Iran's response was cluster munitions on Tel Aviv's suburbs. The escalation pattern is visible and intentional. But Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi also said something important to Al Jazeera in the hours before the attack. He said, "The Islamic Republic of Iran has a strong political structure with established political, economic, and social institutions. The presence or absence of a single individual does not affect this structure." Iran is saying two things simultaneously. 1, we will punish every killing with a military response. 2, our system does not collapse when individuals are removed. Both messages are designed for different audiences. The missile strike is for Israel and America. It says there are consequences. Araghchi's statement is for the Iranian people and the international community. It says the regime is stable. Zaid Ra'ad al-Hussein, former Jordanian ambassador to the U.S. and president of the International Peace Institute, told NPR something chilling about the loss of Larijani. He said, "He seemed to be the one person who the international community could talk to, and now with him having apparently been killed, it's difficult to see how one speaks to anyone in the IRGC." The Tel Aviv cluster missile strike was not the only target overnight. Iran launched a coordinated, multi-directional assault across the entire region simultaneously. In Baghdad, Iran launched several explosive drones at the U.S. Embassy compound. Reuters confirmed it. Sirens triggered inside the diplomatic compound. An explosion was heard near the embassy. The U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, the largest American diplomatic facility in the world, set inside the heavily fortified Green Zone, was targeted by Iranian drones. Think about what that means. America's most important diplomatic compound in Iraq, the country that has been trying to stay out of this war, was attacked by drones while the U.S. is simultaneously trying to get Iraq's cooperation to manage Iranian proxy militias. In the United Arab Emirates, Iran fired a projectile near an Australian airbase. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese confirmed it publicly. He confirmed that no Australian personnel were injured. But Iran struck near an airbase belonging to a country that has been trying hard to stay neutral in this conflict. Saudi Arabia confirmed it intercepted multiple drones and missiles in the early hours. Kuwait reported the same. Bahrain's air defenses were activated. The overnight campaign targeted 6 countries simultaneously. This is the pattern that makes this war so different from anything America has fought in recent decades. Iran is not just fighting Israel. It is not just fighting America. It is fighting everyone who hosts American forces, or is seen as aligned with the American position, simultaneously in one night with hundreds of projectiles. CNBC reported that Iran's IRGC claimed to have hit more than 100 military and security targets across Israeli territories. Israel's military confirmed significant incoming strikes but did not confirm the number. What is confirmed is that the overnight campaign was the largest coordinated regional attack since the war began. Day 19. And the attacks are not slowing down. While Iran was firing cluster missiles at Tel Aviv, Israel was conducting its own strikes overnight, this time in Beirut. The Israeli military struck central Beirut, targeting what it described as Hezbollah militants and installations. Lebanon's health ministry confirmed that 10 people were killed in 2 Israeli strikes on Wednesday morning. The target was the Bachura neighborhood, a residential and commercial district located near the Lebanese Prime Minister's office and several foreign embassies in Beirut. Israel had issued an evacuation order for a specific building on social media at approximately 4 a.m. local time. The strikes followed at around 5:30 a.m. Israeli forces also issued new evacuation orders for parts of southern Lebanon. The IDF's Arabic language spokesman, Colonel Avenge Adrei, told civilians in southern Lebanon to move north of the Zahrani River immediately. He said, "Airstrikes are ongoing as the IDF is operating with great force in the area. Any movement southward may put your lives at risk." Lebanon's health ministry also condemned Israeli strikes that it said damaged 3 public hospitals in Nabateh, a major city in Lebanon's south. 3 hospitals damaged. In the same overnight period that Israel was condemning Iranian cluster munition strikes on Israeli civilians. The Lebanon situation is now a war within a war. More than 1 million Lebanese people have been displaced from their homes, approximately 20% of Lebanon's entire population. More than 900 people have been killed. Entire southern Lebanese communities have been evacuated, and Hezbollah is still firing rockets into northern Israel. 4 injuries were reported in Nahariya and Kibbutz Kabri from Hezbollah rocket attacks on Wednesday. Lebanon did not start this war. Lebanon's government publicly condemned Hezbollah for joining, but Lebanon is being destroyed by it anyway. A country of 6 million people is absorbing the consequences of a conflict between powers much larger than itself. Here is the dimension of last night's attack that deserves honest, direct analysis. Cluster munitions are weapons that the United States has repeatedly condemned other countries for using. When Russia used cluster munitions in Ukraine, American officials called it a war crime. When Assad used cluster munitions in Syria, Washington condemned it. The United States itself is a signatory to various international norms around cluster munition use, though it has not ratified the specific Cluster Munitions Convention. Iran just used cluster munitions against civilian neighborhoods in Tel Aviv. 2 people died, an elderly couple, in their living room, from the fragments of a cluster warhead that split apart over their home. This is the same category of weapon that has killed civilians in Yemen, Syria, and Ukraine. And it was used last night on the suburbs of Israel's largest city. Israel's use of what its opponents describe as disproportionate force in Lebanon, including strikes near hospitals, near the Prime Minister's office, in residential neighborhoods, is condemned by Canada, France, Germany, Italy, and the United Kingdom in their joint statement. Iran's use of cluster munitions against Israeli civilian areas deserves the same condemnation, and it is not receiving it with equal volume. The International Criminal Court has preliminary investigations open on multiple dimensions of this conflict. Human Rights Watch has already declared the Manab school strike, which killed more than 165 students, a war crime. The cluster munition attack on Ramat Gan will be documented and will join that growing legal record. Neither side in this conflict has clean hands. Israel is striking civilian areas of Beirut. Iran is firing cluster munitions at civilian suburbs of Tel Aviv. Both sets of victims are real people. Both deserve to be named, counted, and acknowledged. A man and a woman in their 70s, killed in their living room. That is not a statistic. That is a life. While missiles fly between Israel and Iran, Lebanon is experiencing a humanitarian catastrophe that is happening largely in the background of the war's main coverage. But that is devastating an entire country. More than 1 million people have been displaced from their homes in Lebanon. Wikipedia's verified 2026 Lebanon War article confirms it. Roughly 20% of Lebanon's total population has been forced to leave their homes. More than 130,000 people are living in collective shelters. The United Nations Refugee Agency UNHCR estimated nearly 700,000 people were displaced in just 1 week. The shelters are full. Lebanon's humanitarian system is overwhelmed. Infrastructure is damaged. Southern Lebanese communities have been told to evacuate by the Israeli military. The Zahrani River has become a dividing line. Civilians south of it are told to leave immediately. Lebanon's government did not want this war. It publicly condemned Hezbollah's decision to join Iran in attacking Israel. It passed measures banning Hezbollah's military activities. It called on Hezbollah to hand over its weapons. None of it stopped the war from arriving in Lebanon. Lebanon was already one of the most economically fragile countries in the world before this war began. The 2020 Beirut port explosion destroyed the capital. Years of political crisis and economic collapse left the state unable to function normally. And now, on top of all of that, 1 million people have been displaced. 3 public hospitals in Nabatea have been damaged by Israeli strikes overnight. Medical infrastructure serving people who have nothing to do with Hezbollah or Iran is being destroyed. Canada, France, Germany, Italy, and the United Kingdom said in their joint statement, "The humanitarian situation in Lebanon, including ongoing mass displacement, is already deeply alarming." They called for a significant ground offensive to be averted. Israel launched one anyway. 1 million displaced, 900 killed, and the ground offensive has just begun. Here is a detail from Wednesday morning that appeared briefly in the Times of Israel Live blog and has received almost no coverage elsewhere. But that reveals something important about the intensity of the intelligence war running alongside the military one. Iran executed a man convicted of spying for Israel. Overnight. The judiciary's Mizan online website confirmed it. The man's name was Khorramshahr-4. He had been arrested during Iran's 12-day war with Israel last June. Iran's judiciary said he had provided images and information about the country's sensitive locations to Mossad officers. It listed details of his alleged meetings with agents in Israel, and said he had received intelligence training in 6 European countries and in Tel Aviv. This is the first execution for Israeli espionage announced since this war began, but it is almost certainly not the first time Iran has executed someone for this reason during the war. Iran identified informants who were providing target information to Israel from inside the country, something the Wall Street Journal had already confirmed in a separate report on ordinary Iranians sending locations of besieged checkpoints to Israeli social media accounts in Persian. Israel's ability to find and kill Iranian leaders, Khamenei on day 1, Larijani on day 18, and dozens of other senior officials in between, depends on human intelligence inside Iran. People who know where those leaders are. People who communicate that information to Israeli intelligence. Iran is hunting those people and executing them. This is the war inside the war inside the war. The military strikes, the leadership assassinations, the cluster missiles, and then, in the background, the quiet, brutal elimination of anyone Iran believes helped Israel find its targets. Khorramshahr-4 was executed this morning. His information may have helped save Israeli lives. Iran made sure it was the last information he ever provided. Cluster missiles on Tel Aviv. 2 elderly people killed in their living room. The Baghdad embassy attacked. An Australian base targeted. A Beirut neighborhood struck. 10 killed in Lebanon. And Iran calling this revenge, with the strong implication that more revenge is coming. Here are 3 scenarios for where Day 19 takes this war. Scenario 1. The cluster missile attack becomes the inflection point that accelerates ceasefire. The use of cluster munitions against civilian areas of Tel Aviv generates a qualitatively different international response. Countries that have been careful not to condemn Iran too strongly, because they also condemn Israeli strikes on Lebanon, are now faced with footage of an elderly couple's apartment destroyed by cluster warhead fragments. The international pressure for a ceasefire intensifies rapidly. Oman, Qatar, and China all push harder. Trump, looking at gas at $3.79 and rising, sees an opportunity to end the war while claiming victory. A ceasefire framework is agreed within 72 hours. Scenario 2. Israel retaliates with its most intensive strikes yet, and the war escalates sharply. Israel responds to the cluster missile attack on Tel Aviv with the most intensive targeting campaign of the entire war. It strikes targets it has so far avoided: specific IRGC headquarters, specific command facilities, specific individuals. Iran responds with its newer missiles, the ones its spokesman said have not been used yet. American forces brace for the escalation. Oil goes above $110. Scenario 3. The war settles into a sustained, grinding stalemate. Neither side escalates dramatically beyond what happened overnight. Cluster missiles continue hitting Israeli cities at a lower intensity. Israeli strikes continue in Lebanon. The strait stays at limited capacity. No ceasefire, no major escalation. Just grinding, daily destruction on all sides, while the political and economic pressure builds slowly toward a breaking point nobody has yet identified. Day 19. 2 people killed in Tel Aviv, 900 killed in Lebanon, 13 Americans dead, and the war continues. If this gave you the clearest picture of what happened overnight, subscribe, share, and tell us in the comments, is a ceasefire coming this week or not?